I'm having a lazy morning, but I wanted to respond to this comment. So one of the reasons why I was so adamant about going to the police about what happened actually plays into everything that's happening right now. Daniel Bard took two things that I really cared about, none of which were money, none of which were public image, none of which were those things. Those were not my priority. What Daniel took away from me were my delusion of safety in my space, which didn't really exist because of the person who was my ex-husband. But more importantly, Daniel took away time with my children. You see, when I had my second child, I literally had my C-section on a Saturday. I had my C-section on a Saturday and was back to work on Thursday. I know some of you like to underplay delivery of babies. I know some of you like to underplay C-sections. But it's very much invasive surgery. And given that it was my second C-section, with the first one being an emergency C-section, which are extremely invasive, recovery is hard and takes time. I ended up working every single day on a project that did not exist because of Daniel. I missed some of the peak, most important bonding years with my oldest son. And I wore my youngest son on me, almost like an article of clothing, when I went into work every single day, doing all the things that I did. And some of you like to be like, well, hustle and da da da. I'm sorry. I am mother first. Mother first. And so because Daniel took away the time that I had most valuable with my children, Daniel had a criminal debt to pay. To me and to anyone else he harmed. There's one other business person who came forward and went to the police in their area because, similar to me, it affected something that had to do with their son. I'd like to be clear that I was the only female victim who was directly implicit in this particular crime. He has other mortgage scandals and things like this, where there were more femme victims, but I was the only AFAB victim, and I was one of two racialized victims. One being my ex, who I've mentioned before is culturally very much unmelanated. And so also let me add to the fact that on the stand, I was subjected to misogynoir with zero objections except when it came to one direct misogynoir term where he called me intimidating, I think the word was. Either that or aggressive or something along those lines. Because I stood up for myself. But let me be clear that I went to the police while being intimidated by other business owners, much bigger than I, all males, who wanted me to shut up. Because the level of damage to us as a small business and where we were dealt with in a corporate setting of that government-funded organization, once called 3 Plus, still exists with a new Southeast Regional Business Development Agency, I think is the new name. I don't even know. But to be clear, they still exist. They just rebranded since that incident. There's also a lot of government involvement in this situation. But that's a whole other story for the other day, for another day. It's why they pinned it on Daniel. I don't believe he acted alone. I do believe he did the majority of the scamming, but I don't believe he did it alone. And then the burying of said scandal was 100% committed by this government-funded agency and their lawyers who used deceptive measures to pull out information. All this to say to that, despite all of that, I didn't give a damn. I went to the police. I presented the evidence that I had. my ex-husband only presented a recording, and a couple of other things that were digital. I'm not very digital oriented, but I am organized. And I brought to the police the evidence that I had that a crime was committed. And I've done it again since then. Recently, in fact, the last couple of months, last 6 months or so. Twice. 3 times, but one kind of escalated into swallowing the other. I have my time to wait for justice. I will take my time so that it's done right, so that people will be reprimanded until sentencing dates, and so that, just like Daniel, a precedent is set, using them as the example. I have no problem going up against large organizations, large groups, or large government entities. Especially if the people in there harm my children and deprive them of my protection. Just some food for thought. I want to also add that my ex goes around claiming to be a victim of this crime. The person who gave us the money was my mother. She never demanded repayment, and I was subjected to tremendous psychological abuse over the situation by him. For me to only realize, like, I don't know, maybe 8 months ago that he's not even a victim of the crime. I mean, you ask him, he's a victim of everything. But this particular situation, he wasn't financially out anything. He definitely blamed me for it. Whatever loss he incurred. I don't know what that loss is. Anyway. I was victimized every single day by both Daniel and him, because they're very much one and the same. I document everything, and I did force it into the record that he's not a victim of this. I also forced it into the record that he lied on the stand the first trial, before the retrial, knowingly. Because at the end of the day, if we are not honest, then our evidence doesn't matter. And he was just as much dangerous to the justice for my children as he was dangerous to me and the entire case. Anyway, shout out to the Crown prosecution who did their best, even though they completely allowed me to be subjected to very horrible xenophobia and racism and misogyny on the stand. He could have been found guilty without that part. But anyway, I digress. Maybe don't mess with a mom, especially not a protective one. But more importantly, don't mess with that mom's children. Food for thought.